Hey guys, what is up? It's Lewpac, back with another Albion Online video for you. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at something I get asked an awful lot on my live stream. I do live stream 5 days a week on twitch.tv/Lewpac if you want to check it out Monday to Friday. Quite often, you'll see me running solo dungeons for just a bit of chill faming when there's nothing else going on. And solo dungeons have become super popular, especially now that they close and there's a lot less chance of being ganked in them and dove in them. They're one of the premier ways for guys to fame farm, especially if you don't have a group or a guild available to help you fame farm at a given time. And the thing is obviously solo dungeons spawn in the open world, but you also have the option to spawn them with maps. And the biggest question I'm always asked about these maps and when I'm running them is, are maps worth buying? Is it worth buying maps to do solo dungeons versus just running them in the open world? And secondly, if you get maps in your dungeons or while you're farming, should you use them or should you sell them? Now, the 0.3 and 0.2 maps can get very expensive, especially at T8, and people are worried that they won't see a return on what they spend. They're super concerned that if they buy these maps, they're going to be wasting their money. So I've got great news for you guys. In today's video, I'm going to waste a ton of money so that you don't have to. So a couple of things we're going to be looking at in this video. I just want to give you the basics before we get into the nitty gritty. We're going to be looking at both the profitability of the map and the fame return of the map. I'm going to be doing T8 maps exclusively, but the price differences across the tiers and the ratio of value across the tiers seems to be fairly consistent. For the purpose of this video, we're going to be doing T8s because they're the best and they're probably the one that you're going to want to end up at in the end game of Albion. Secondly, we're going to be ignoring silver that I lose from fame credits, silver that I lose from my satchel, okay? We're not going to factor that into the overall value. We're literally looking at the cost of the map versus the return in terms of silver on the floor and the items. Yes, I'm draining my silver through fame credits, but it's unfair to consider that into the value of the map because that's a choice that I'm making. Finally, we are going to be factoring in the difficulty of the maps. Now, bear in mind, I'm doing maps in a guild hideout zone, which is tier 8 in the deep outlands. There's not a lot of passing traffic. There's not many gankers or divers. So I am doing these maps in 8.3 just because I can and just to speed up making this video. Obviously, this is not realistic for the average player, but again, you know, we're looking at the value of the map as opposed to the time taken. So me being faster at clearing, you'll still be able to clear the majority of it. That being said, the 0.3 maps actually do get quite difficult to the point that I had to bring some gear swaps for certain bosses in there. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. Finally, the last factor that I want to talk about before we get into the nitty gritty is the maps have a couple of inherent advantages over just finding a dungeon, which they don't really have a value. There's not a numerical value, but it's definitely a big plus for them. Obviously, we know that maps give increased fame and increased loot based on their difficulty, but the two advantages they also have are due to the way they work. When you use a map, it will give you the location of a dungeon in the zone you're in, and that dungeon will not appear until you get there. So when you use a map, you can guarantee that it's your dungeon. You're guaranteeing that it hasn't been started by somebody else, like a guildie, and then you have to leave. Or even worse, the other benefit is there's a new type of diving that people do. In super popular dungeon spots, what somebody does is a diver quickly jumps in a dungeon. He runs deep in there and waits for somebody to come in and start clearing. Now, obviously, after 90 seconds, the entrance will close, so there's a very small window, but people have been getting some super juicy kills by going quickly into a dungeon, hiding inside it, and just waiting for a guy in like 8.2, 8.3, thinking that he's totally safe, to start clearing and then just getting the kill. I know a number of guys that have been killed in Red Tree Enclave, which is like a super popular T8 dungeon spot for the Arch Alliance. People are getting caught out by this. But if you're using a map, the dungeon didn't spawn until you got there, so there's definitely not a diver inside. So those are like bonuses from using a map. Of course, they don't have a fixed value, so we don't factor them in, but they kind of tip it over the edge, especially for some of the tiers of map. Right, so let's get into our study then and start by looking at the T8 maps on the market. Now, maps come in all tiers from 4 to 8, and they come in 4 rarities. You have a flat map, a 0.1, a 0.2, and a 0.3 map. They increase in cost, but as the rarity goes up, the challenge increases, the mobs become harder, but they give more fame and the loot rolls become bigger. And, you know, the 0.3 bonuses are quite substantial, as you will see in this video. So the solo map here, we can pick up at a very reasonable 60 to 65k. Bottom line, these actually are the cheapest right now, but I have been buying them at 60. If we look at buy orders, you can see the highest buy order is 48. So you could probably, actually a few more have just been listed here at 55. So these prices are going down as we speak, which is very, very nice. So we got 55k is our bottom line here. Buy orders at 48. I mean, if you're running T8 maps, this price is probably not a lot. I mean, it's almost worth it just to guarantee that you've got constant dungeons, that you're not competing with anyone, and to protect yourself from diving. Not to mention the slight bonuses. We'll get into like the returns on them once we get out there and actually run some. The 0.1 maps then jump around 100 to 130k for a bit more of a bonus and obviously a bit more loot and fame. They're slightly harder, but still not an unreasonable price for a guy wearing, you know, 4 to 5 million in fame farming gear. If you're going to do a long session, you know, I could pick up 10 of these for 1.5 million using buy orders. I don't think that's really a bad price. The 0.2s, however, are when it starts to get a little bit pricey. You know, 369,000 bottom line for a map. If you wanted to buy a bunch of these, you're going to be pushing into the 400k. I think I bought 10 of these or 15 of these initially. I bought 5 8.3 maps, 20 8.1 maps, and 20 flat maps during my testing. And I think, you know, I spent like 8 to 10 million on maps because I wasn't really worried about the prices as such. The pricing bit I'm doing now just sat at the market. So these, again, you know, that starts to be a lot of money for each run. And the bonuses do increase quite nicely, but are they actually worth it? And of course, the 8.3 maps, the cheapest on the market right now is 850,000. People are buy ordering at 700,000, and $1 million per dungeon starts to get very expensive, you know, when it's pushing up these prices. There's quite a few available at 850, but if you wanted to buy 20 of these, you'll soon find the price creeping up towards the 951 million mark. Now, they do have great bonuses and they're a lot of fun to do, as you're going to see in this video, but are they worth that money? I hope so, because I bought a ton of them. As I said, I spent 10 million on maps. I'm hoping I make some money back, but we'll find out in this video, of course. So I got my maps, I ran some dungeons, I zoomed around with my Beyblades build, Stalker build, just stuff that I was trying to level. Once that's maxed, I'm going to be trying other stuff like Calarant Blade, Infernal Scythe, Permafrost, all the things that people have recommended to me. But this was more a test of the dungeons and are the maps good value. We don't care about the speed, you know, if you guys are going faster, going slower, that doesn't matter. What matters is like the total fame or the average fame per mob and the value of it. So running these, you know, I found that the drops were very, very varying. You know, I had an 8.2 map where I made about 2.2 million because I got super lucky with the drops. I had a couple of 8.3 maps though that were a single floor in depth, and I had a blue chest, and you know, I came out minus 500k. The variance was a massive factor, and it really, really put me off of the 0.3 maps and almost the 0.2 maps as well. The 0.1s at their price point seemed a lot more consistent. You know, I was often making plus or minus 50k, and then if I got lucky, I would either get another 8.1 map during the run, or I would get a drop that was worth like 5 8.1 maps. Whereas the 0.3 map felt very all in. If you come out with only 100, 150k, you've lost 500,000 plus on a single run, and it's not a great feeling. So having run these, the fame is obviously better for 8.3, 8.2. my thoughts on it, having done an absolute ton of these dungeons, are honestly, if you're just there for the fame and you have more money than you care about, if you don't care about money, you've got tons of money, knock yourselves out, have some fun, run 8.3s, run 8.2s, just get the max fame you can per hour, maximize your efficiency, and hope to get lucky with the drops. If you're a kind of what I would call a normal player, you know, if you're constantly working to grind your premium and you know, you don't have money to throw away, you've got money to operate on, but not just silly money. I would say that flat 8 maps and 8.1 maps, or flat maps and 0.1 maps, offer very, very good value. If you're pretty broke, buy flat maps. If you've got plenty of money, buy the 0.1 maps. I would say, based on the testing that I've done here, that if you are going out solo dungeon farming and you're serious about getting a good amount of fame and putting a good amount of time into it, and you know the zone you're going to be in, and you're going to be based out of that zone, or you're going to be there for a while, then I would definitely take maps with me. Flat maps if you're broke, 0.1 maps if you're not. I wouldn't recommend 0.2 or 0.3 unless you've just got FU money. If you don't care about money, fine. But for everybody else, flat maps or 0.1 maps are good value and bonus like value. So you get your money back on average from running the map. Obviously you would make slightly more profit if you're finding solo dungeons, but this of course is offset by the downtime of finding the dungeon, the downtime of dungeons that are already taken, and if you get dove by someone who's hiding in the dungeon, or anti-dove as it were, you're completely wiped out. The peace of mind and the bonuses of a flat map massively outweigh the cost. And of course, across 100 maps, you're probably going to do better because that little bonus the map gives you will occasionally translate into a really nice loot roll. So always run maps if you're going to be doing a serious solo farm session. Use flat maps and 0.1. 0.2 and 0.3, I'm kind of sad that having done my testing, they're not worth it on average. You know, I had some really cool ones. I had a nice epic chest in a 0.3 that was pretty glorious. I got a legendary chest in a 0.1, which was awesome. But in my opinion, they could do with a little tweak to them. A change I would like to see, particularly with the 0.2 and 0.3 maps, is I would like those enchant tiers to guarantee one extra floor. There's nothing more anticlimactic than running an exceptional map than it then being one floor with a blue chest. So for solo dungeons, they can go up to 3 floors. So if a 0.2 map guaranteed 2 floors and a 0.3 map guaranteed 3 floors, suddenly the potential value in the map is a bit more. You know, it's less of a... It's basically a gamble. You know, you could get super lucky, get a legendary chest in your 0.3 map. You could get super unlucky. It's very RNG. It's not quite how I would like it to be, which is why the conclusion of this video is don't do 0.3 or 0.2 maps unless you don't care about money. If you find one, I would sell it. Honestly, I would sell a 0.3 map before I would run it if I had any sort of money troubles. The only reason I run them is to make this video and content for the stream because people like to see it, and because I don't care about money. You know, I'm at the stage of the game now. I've been playing this game as a full-time job for 3.5 years plus. I'm not worried about silvering games, so I can just spend it on these maps if I want to. But for normal players, don't waste your money. Sell them at the moment. They could end up being garbage and you're just out of pocket. So yeah, that's all we have to say then about this particular topic. I hope this was an insightful look into these maps. If any of you have been running solo dungeons and wondering, should I be using maps instead of just finding dungeons? Now you know. Buy order your flat maps and your 0.1 maps nice and cheap and spam them. It is worth it. 0.2 and 0.3, sell them. Don't bother. Let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this video. And of course, if there's any other questions you have about the game that you'd like me to make a video on, if you'd like me to waste a bunch of money finding out something you've always wondered, let me know. I'm sure we can have some fun doing it. Thanks for watching, guys, and of course, if you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me immensely with growing the channel and supporting myself so I can keep making awesome content for this awesome game. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time for another video.